At the bottom of the world tonight, a colossal iceberg, one of the largest ever measured, has broken away. The 1 trillion tonne chunk of ice, roughly the size of Bali, has split from the Larsen C ice shelf in Antarctica.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that sounds like really shocking news. But scientists can't agree whether this huge breakaway iceberg is or is not related to man-made global warming. And on a rather more trivial level, it seems the media can't even agree how big it is.
How big is big?
A68, as it's likely to be called by the scientists who identified it, is 1 trillion tonnes and 5,800 square kilometres.
Now, the iceberg is around 1 million tonnes and 6,800 square kilometres in surface area.
And an iceberg measuring more than 3,000 square kilometres is about to break off from one of the largest floating ice shelves in Antarctica.
So let's try comparing the size of the iceberg with something more familiar. Here's Associate Professor David Suggett on ABC News 24 having a try.
If you can imagine this mass chunk of ice, it's pretty much the size of Wales.
Well, no, it's not. Try 1/4 of the size. Any more ideas?
You're probably talking about something that's, the size of Melbourne.
A bit smaller than that. Try again.
Or 2 or 3 times Port Phillip Bay, for example.
That's more like it. Anyone else?
Bigger than the size of Bali.
And it's around half the size of Sydney.
Twice the size of the ACT. So just to give you some perspective of how large it is.
Well, hooray. And just for the record, it's 5,800 square kilometres and it weighs 1 trillion tonnes, which is, very heavy. But now, let's go to some scary shopping news and the monster that's looming on our retail horizon.
Online shopping is in for a big shake-up with a new player set to launch in Australia.
And which big player would that be? Well, Amazon, of course. The American behemoth, which is set to arrive on our shores any day now. At least that's what the media keeps telling us. On Nines Today, back in February, Sylvia Jeffries brought us the news that Amazon's membership service was coming soon.
So they haven't officially confirmed that Amazon Prime is coming to Australia, but there has been strong enough speculation, of course, for us to stand here and discuss it this morning. They're alluding to the fact that it's not far away.
Alluding, eh? So should we be thinking days or weeks away? 2 months later, today's finance guru Ross Greenwood announced that D-Day had arrived.
I've got to tell you, this is the news that will make retailers' blood run cold. Amazon, the global retail giant, is today firmly putting its hooks into Australia.
Today, right, so it was finally happening. But what exactly did Amazon launch?
This here just went up onto its Australian website this morning. A simple statement that says Amazon Marketplace is coming soon to Australia.
What? Still coming soon? And another 3 months later, it's still not here. And a current affair is finding the suspense too much to bear, warning retailers at regular intervals of impending doom.
Even the dominant Swedish giant IKEA is looking over its shoulder at the pending arrival of Amazon in Australia.
With Amazon, the giant online retailer, about to launch here, threatening to leave bricks and mortar stores in rubble.
I guess the elephant in the room and the thing that everyone is talking about is that Amazon's likely to arrive in the next couple of years.
Surely not. Still a couple of years away. And the print media, who are also thrilled at the prospect, are no clearer about when it might land. Story after story has speculated on a date from July to September and into next year, while sounding the alarm on the threat it will pose, sending shoppers and share traders into a spin. Meanwhile, all Amazon has actually said back in April is...
The next step is to bring a retail offering to Australia, and we are making those plans now.
Well, that was 3 months ago, and Gerry Harvey, for one, isn't panicking. The outspoken retailer, who would have more than most to lose, told Fairfax last month...
Amazon, to my knowledge, haven't even bought a block of land in Australia. Let's assume I buy a block of land tomorrow. I've got to buy it, pay for it, put in a development application. If that happens within 3 years, that's very quick.
Time for hundreds more stories. But in the meantime, some believe the threat has been vastly overstated.
Don't believe the Amazon taking over Australia hype. Merrill Lynch.
Lagging infrastructure, sparse population and already well-developed online shopping habits mean Amazon will not upend Australia's retail sector, as some have predicted.
Even better. Then we can have another 100 stories about how it wasn't nearly as bad as we feared. That's if Amazon ever does arrive. But now to the Daily Telegraph, which caused outrage last week by suggesting same-sex relationships make you sick. Surely more likely to happen from reading the telly. So loud was the uproar that the paper's editor Chris Daw was forced to apologise, or not, claiming he'd just been misunderstood.
Unfortunately, the presentation of the story has been misinterpreted. The story in no way suggests or intends to suggest that same-sex relationships are unhealthy. There is no judgment expressed at all in the story other than about diet. Chris Daw, editor.
Really? Yes, sorry, not sorry. So, what was the fuss all about? Well, it was this graphic highlighting the poor health of under 24-year-olds in New South Wales.
Fat chance of being healthy. Young Aussies only have themselves to blame.
And maybe that's true, because as the graphic showed, roughly a third drink too much, are overweight or obese, and or take illicit drugs. But for some extraordinary reason, the telly added another marker to the mix, citing this as another cause of young people's ill health.
16.8% of secondary school students in Australia are attracted to people of the same sex as them, or to both sexes.
Not surprisingly, the telly was hit with a tsunami of criticism.
Daily Telegraph just claimed being gay is bad for your health, and people are disgusted.
Daily Telly outdoes itself, says young LGBTQI Aussies are a health concern.
And again, not surprisingly, the telly also put Australia in the headlines right around the world. So, was it just a misunderstanding? I hardly think so. At best, it was a stupid mistake. And we reckon the telly should take a leaf out of Karl Stefanovic's book and go the full mea culpa, which, in case they've forgotten, goes like this.
I get it wrong, and yesterday I got it very wrong. I am an ignorant fool at times, and my humour is skewed in a very strange fashion. I get it wrong, I probably always will, but as a result of yesterday, I truly have learned a lesson.
But the telly learning a lesson is probably too much to hope. And now to local news from Channel 9 Darwin, which last week announced it was axing local production of its nightly bulletin and shifting almost all of it 3,400 kilometres away to Brisbane.
Now to the story that has the territory talking. Instead of delivering the news, tonight we're making it.
Yes, after more than 30 years, 9 News Darwin is killing its locally produced news bulletin from September.
9 axes standalone Darwin news bulletin and moves production to Queensland. 9's Darwin studio will close, leaving behind a skeleton staff of reporters filing packages to Queensland to be broadcast back into the territory.
13 jobs will go, leaving 4 reporters, 3 cameramen and a chief of staff in the territory to produce stories which will be mixed with national news and read from Brisbane. So, why the closure after more than 3 decades? Well, it all comes down to cost. 9 says a Darwin studio and big local team is too expensive to maintain.
We've spent an extraordinary amount of money to try and keep up the facilities, the background of news, the stuff that actually makes it go out to the TV screens, and that's a hugely expensive operation. If we keep doing that, if we keep throwing money at that, we won't be viable.
The move is part of 9's $500 million Australia-wide deal with Southern Cross Austereo, which will deliver a host of regional news bulletins from capital cities, and in many areas put more journalists on the ground. So, more local news, but at less cost. The new system's already been rolled out in Victoria, where Joe Hall, based in Melbourne, broadcasts bulletins that include a package of local news into Ballarat, Bendigo, Albury and Gippsland. And it's also already running in New South Wales, where Vanessa O'Hanlon, who's in Sydney, broadcasts tailor-made bulletins to Canberra, Wollongong, Wagga Wagga and Dubbo. So, how does it work? Well, a couple of reporters in each local area file stories into a central hub from where one newsreader sends out multiple bulletins. And that's what Darwin will be getting. Its news will be beamed from Brisbane, where 9's Samantha Heathwood is set to send bulletins to Cairns, Townsville, Mackay, Rockhampton, Toowoomba and the Sunshine Coast. 9 insists its Darwin coverage will be as good as ever, but there will be fewer reporters on the ground and no local news in weekend bulletins. And 9 staff are sure the quality will fall. As one told Media Watch,
there's no way you can report on something by proxy. I don't see how you would deliver the same product. We do 1 or 2 live crosses a week with breaking news, but there will be no more live crosses anymore.
Northern Territory Chief Minister Michael Gunner is also concerned, demanding 9 rethink its decision, saying the cutbacks will be devastating.
I don't want the Territory image to be confined to the negative news story or the classic NT News front page.
And in case you've forgotten what they are like, here's a reminder. Funny, certainly. News, not so sure. Nine's decision to close its Darwin studio leaves the ABC as the only major network producing NT News from the Territory. And luckily, the ABC has no plans to change that. And finally tonight, to the annual Journalism Awards, better known as the Walkleys, which have come under fire after this bizarre decision.
Journalists decry move to drop International Walkley Award. Under new arrangements, you can now win a Walkley for a tweet, but not for international journalism.
Incredible, isn't it? Social media is in, old-fashioned reporting out. For the past fortnight, the Walkleys has been taking hits from high-profile reporters for canning the international journalism category, describing the move as a bad call, short-sighted, parochial and absurd. And one of its brightest stars also reckons it is a mistake.
Dropping international journalism from the Walkleys sends an appalling message. It is necessary, often dangerous and underappreciated.
Peter Grester is not alone. More than 500 supporters of the award, mostly journalists, are demanding it be reinstated.
Now more than ever, international reporting is a vital part of Australian journalism. The major international journalism awards, including the Pulitzer Prize, all include a category for international reporting.
So why axe such a prestigious and obvious award? The Walkley board says it wants to streamline the number of categories and that
international reporting will be entered and honoured in other categories.
But former winners reckon that is a cop-out. Fairfax's foreign correspondent Jill Topsfield, who won for her expose on Australian authorities paying people smugglers to turn back boats, told MediaWatch,
"It is unlikely that judges would be across the nuance of an international story, the extent of the scoop and the degree of difficulty involved in researching it, in the same way as they would be an Australian story."
Amanda Hodge, another winner of the International Walkley for a group of stories in 2013, asked MediaWatch,
"Why should news consumers or proprietors value such reporting if the industry does not even think it worthy of recognition?"
And Fairfax's Lindsay Murdoch, who won the award for breaking the baby Gammies story in Thailand, is stunned.
It is a slap in the face. It is extremely disappointing the board does not recognise this at a time the international scene is in a parlous state.
Parlous, yes. The ABC's Middle East correspondent Sophie McNeil, another past winner, is also incredulous.
To me, it sends absolutely the wrong message and says a lot about where the industry is heading. How can sport and business still have a category and not international?
It's hard to argue with that. But the Walkley Advisory Board is intransigent, tweeting its decision is final for now. With 30 Walkley Award categories still remaining, the symbolism of the board's decision is shocking, especially given how much Australians love international news. A Reuters Institute survey 2 years ago found Australians value overseas news above all else and far above sport, business and the arts. Seems the journalists who run the awards think otherwise. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website and catch up with us on iView. You can also contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. And make sure you catch Media Bites every Thursday. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.